welcome back to the Iron Stone Podcast. I'm Anderson Miller.
Dimitri Ray.
And today we're going to be discussing Luther, the Fallen Son, which just recently released on Netflix, and that has been trending in the top 10 for a week or so now, and for good reason. And we're going to get into that. Before we start, though, I want to clarify that neither one of us knew that this was a TV show prior to watching the film. So...
Also, spoilers for those who have not seen it.
Oh, yes.
There will be spoilers in this, so definitely...
Spoiler alert.
Definitely recommend watching
spoiling the movie
before watching this.
Gosh. All right. You want to know what happened in this movie, Dima?
I do.
All right. Luther, the Fallen Son. A serial killer terrorizes London while disgraced detective John Luther sits behind bars. Haunted by his failure to capture the cyber psychopath who now taunts him, Luther decides to break out of prison to finish the job by any means necessary. It's like Liam Neeson getting his family back.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do something new with this.
Okay.
We're going to start with our rating.
Okay. Let's do it.
So I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 5 stones.
I'm going to go with a 3.75 because I wanted... Because I agree with that, but I also wanted to give it a 4. But I feel like there's still certain things about it, about the movie itself, that were missing.
Yep.
Not necessarily with the actors and their portrayal of their characters.
Yeah, no,
but
I
I
agree.
feel like in the storyline itself and certain things that we were shown, in my opinion, was missing. I still think it's a great movie. Like I said, the actors killed it. I mean, Andy Serkis, he's a phenomenal actor. And anything that I've seen him in, I've been a fan of his.
Yeah, same.
Idris Elba?
Mm-hmm.
Elba. I think he is a... You know, we were talking before the show. He's a great actor anyway.
He can sell me on a movie even if I don't like the story.
Exactly. So, like I said, it's nothing against, what the actors did. It's more on the lines of the story and what we were shown.
Yeah.
I felt like was missing. But in their defense, I mean, I seen this thing that Netflix actually, I think they changed Luther in The Falling Son to make it less scary. And for me, being a fan of horror movies, granted, this is from NME article, I think it was, saying that. So I don't know how accurate that actually is, but based on them,
I could believe it from...
I can believe it too. I wish they would have left it in.
Reactions I've seen online.
Yeah.
It seems like people who did watch the TV show... I'm kind of relating it to people who have read a book for a movie.
Yes.
When the movie's about a book series and then they go see it versus like someone who doesn't read books and just goes... Like generally, the person who didn't read the book is going to like the movie a lot more than the person who's read the book.
Right.
So that's kind of how I feel like it is with this, because I was watching some reviews about this movie and they tear it apart.
Yeah.
They think it shouldn't have been made. They think it was... awful. They think it's not really a testament to the series that came before, and I'm just like, man, all right. But something I've heard is that it doesn't feel as like the stakes don't feel as high, and it feels like things aren't really earned in this film. And I can kind of agree with that on some things, but I think not seeing the TV show, I just don't have that comparison. So for me and him, it was an introductory to this character and this whole world, and I was overall just very entertained. I thought it was filmed very well. You can tell by the way it's filmed, it was probably meant to be a darker film.
Right.
So I can believe that article.
Yeah.
I can believe that 100%. I love a good cat and mouse serial killer detective story.
Yes.
I will always talk about Seven. You guys have heard me talk about it on other podcast episodes. Seven is like top tier for me, and I'd say right under it is Zodiac Killer. Like, I love a dark, gritty, take on a serial killer and detectives trying to figure out what's going on.
Yes.
And something for me that I think makes you feel like the stakes are high is when it's like a ticking time bomb. So like in 7, they know something awful is going to happen when he gets to the 7th deadliest sin.
Yeah.
And they're like, we got to figure out who this guy is. And Zodiac, you just feel like there's going to be a lot of people that die if you don't figure out who this guy is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people died.
Yep.
And he was able to disappear and come back. And so I like that, in a story.
For me, it reminded me kind of Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal, which we'll get to in a later podcast. But
yes, we will.
it kind of had the same cat and mouse game with that.
Yeah.
Or, Dexter season 6 with the serial killer. Man, watching this show so many times, I should have his name memorized by now. I see his face, but pretty much the serial killer who was killing based on the Book of Revelation.
It
It was kind of like that. Like,
I know you're talking about. I can't think of what they were calling him.
Yeah,
But I know exactly what you're talking about.
but it was a cat and mouse game, not only with Dexter and the serial killer trying to figure it out because they were on a time crunch, which we'll get to in a later podcast, but also with Miami Homicide, we're trying to figure it out real quick too. So, there's a lot of things out there that do a very good job with it, and I think this movie, Luther, was now one of those movies that does a very good job with the cat and mouse game.
I thought the stakes were present
Yes.
and definitely high. That's why I'm confused by these reviews, because to me, I feel like, now granted, I do think his escape from prison was kind of
Yeah.
soft. It didn't really feel like a big thing. It felt almost easy to a degree, but you did have this feeling of like, if he doesn't get out of prison, no one's gonna figure out what's going on. Like, you feel like he's almost like the James Bond of this world.
Yep.
It's like you have all these spies, but if this one doesn't tackle this, it's not gonna get solved. Right. It's not gonna get figured out.
I feel like they rushed that part of the movie because it wasn't, what they really wanted to focus on. They wanted to focus on this cat and mouse game. And
it's too bad though, because when I was reading about this movie before I watched it, that's what intrigued me.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Like, because again, I didn't understand that there was this TV show and all the things he did in the series, because it sounds like he's basically a vigilante in the TV show. Like, he has a badge, but he always, like, kind of goes over the line of what he's supposed to do. So that's cool. And I'm probably going to end up checking this TV show out. But, he goes to prison for all these things he did in the TV show. So, like, I was kind of not... I don't feel like they did a great job of explaining why he was in prison in this film. But it didn't really matter too much. You just kind of see the news story of like, oh, he's been put in prison for like the things he did to figure out. Yeah. So it was like, all right, cool. But to me, it was like, wow, the main protagonist that you're rooting for is in prison.
Yeah.
But you have this understanding of like, he is a good guy and he needs to be out of prison. So I'm like, it would have been so cool if there was a lot more into the prison escape. Yeah. Because you would have been rooting for him, even though, like, the prison guards, the warden, they're all people just doing their job, similar to Prison Break.
Yep.
It's like you're rooting for this guy because you know something they don't, and that's that he can figure all this shit out with the serial killer. And I'm going to jump right into Andy Serkis real quick because I am such a huge fan of his, and I love that he's getting these more, like, a lot of people are familiar with him for his, like, CGI work. Like, he did Snoke in Star Wars, Smeagol in Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. But I like that he's getting these more prominent characters in, like, the MCU and even as Alfred in the Batman, in which he did a phenomenal job.
He's such a rounded actor.
Yeah, man, he's so good. And even though I hated his hair in this movie, I thought his hair looked stupid.
Yeah, but I think it was supposed to fit the character.
Yeah,
like,
but...
kind of some dork, honestly.
But he just absolutely delivered.
Yeah.
Like, I wrote that in my notes. I was like, Andy Serkis delivers.
He does.
Always. I mean, just... Always. And Idris Elba does, too.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Idris is that he is, for me, on par with, like, Tom Hanks or Samuel L. Jackson. It's like, their style of acting isn't necessarily they're a different character. They're giving you a very good version of themselves that you could believe would be this character.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how I look at some actors that are like, of high praise.
Right.
Because if you ask me, Samuel Jackson, he's pretty much the same in most movies, but you just love that he's in them and he kills it in the role that he's in. Yep. And that's how Idris Elba is. And I'm not saying he's not a good actor. Right. It's just a different style of acting.
Yes.
And he's good at it. And I think he, really nails this role. I actually felt like we didn't really get enough of his story.
Yeah.
I don't know, like there's people that are saying this movie does do a good job of making it so if you're a first comer to this series and this character, you have a good understanding of what's going on. I'm like, yeah, you kind of do, but I could have used more of like what was going on with him internally, and whether that's like having more emotionally involved characters that he has dialogue with that help build him as a character and establish like his motivations, other than he is just, this, well, I guess detective at first, but then he's not.
Right.
But either way, he's just a man of the wall, and he's out here trying to like hunt a serial killer. I don't know. I could have used a little bit more.
I could have too. I feel like, it was already a 2-hour-long movie though.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why they didn't, because it was such a, I'm not saying this in a negative sense, but it was a long movie, which most movies are 2 hours nowadays. But I feel like it really would have got pushed to like 3+ hours if we had to.
That's a fair
do
point.
That.
Yeah.
So, which I feel like with the TV show, watching it prior to watching the movie would have really given us that a little more. But I do agree. I wish we would have got to see more of an emotional side of like who this guy is as an audience. Like get, a little more emotionally involved with his character, Luther. But I think, what they really wanted to focus on was the cat and mouse game. And that's what they did. They focused on that primarily.
They jump right into it.
They did. And, I feel like taking that away would have taken away from the game itself.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have been as impactful as it was.
I almost feel like, and this is just me assuming, that this story could have almost been a mini series.
Yeah.
So, like, he's reprising this role, kind of similar to Dexter.
Yeah.
Like, the story of Dexter, Bad Blood, what was it called?
Bad Blood.
Bad Blood, okay, yeah. I feel like that could have just been a movie if they had done some cutting here and there, cutting some fat. But I like that it was a mini series. Let it breathe more. You got more out of the story. I think this
New Blood, not Bad
New
Blood.
Blood. Okay, New Blood. Sorry, they'd be like, he's a fake fan. There's too many things we're trying to keep up with. All right. No, but I feel like if this could have been a mini series. Yeah. Like a one-time event mini-series, like he comes back one last time for this role. That would have been cool, and maybe things that I have gripes with wouldn't be present, and then I would give this a 4.5 stones. Because honestly, all of my gripes are just with, like, I think all the acting's good. I think the filming's good. The scores, it's not really anything special, but
wasn't the best.
It doesn't take away from the film or anything. It's not like the Studio Squad, David Ayer's butchered film, where you just got music being thrown in there, like, oh, okay. I mean, some of the music was cool, but then some of it just like, yeah. So it's not like that, but yeah. So the score was but everything else was great. It's just the some of the story aspects, there were just things missing or things that I feel like weren't dived into enough. And again, the prison aspect for me is a big thing. Like, you could have had a whole 45-minute episode in a season about him in prison, at least, if not 2.
Shit, Prison Break had
a whole season about
a whole season and then some. About breaking out of prison, so you can really drag prison breaks along. So, but I see why they didn't do that with this character, because I feel like I understand that and I mean, I could be completely wrong about this, but the way I see it, they wanted to focus on the cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
And that was their biggest concern with this movie.
Yeah.
Versus but I do agree. I love Prison Break's stories, like any of them.
Well, that's what intrigued me.
Yes.
You know, because there's a lot of the cat and mouse stories out there. Yeah. So that's what like caught my attention. But I can say I did enjoy what I was given. So.
See, with me, it was the serial killer aspect. Me being such a big fan on serial killer stories like Dexter. You know, I mean, shit, even your actual serial killer movies based on real serial killers, you know, the Ted Bundy movie, you know, the Zodiac movie, hell, even the, you know, Dahmer TV show.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, granted, like I said in the, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre podcast, I was never a fan of his as a serial killer because to me he was real basic. And I like the ones that, you know, aren't, you know, the basic, you know, past and all that, but it changed my mind on him. And so in that sense, because I love psychology, I became a fan of learning about serial killers. So to me, that was the grasp. Like, you know, you gave us 2 movies to choose from for this, and I originally said the other one, and then you said, oh, that's surprising because this one's based on a serial killer. I was like, I gotta watch that. Like, I gotta see what they do with this character who is a serial killer. Andy's character being the serial killer. And honestly, I'm glad I like this serial killer because he's different.
I thought that this was a very fresh take on a serial killer.
Yeah.
I like a lot of things. For one, he's not just acting on his own, which is very interesting.
What was it? They classified it as like a red room, I think.
Yeah. And there's so much I got to unpack with his character, but like, yeah, the fact that he's got basically a network,
right,
that of people,
yes,
and it kind of turns into there's a Hostel movie. I don't know if you've seen any of the Hostel movies.
I think we watched them.
I don't know if it's the second one or the third one where they end up on a live stream, and then people who bought into the event could select how people get tortured.
Yep.
That's kind of what this reminded me of.
Yes.
Not a direct rip-off by any means.
Right.
It's its own thing, because it's just completely different. I'm not even going to break down why it's different. It is. If you've seen the movie and then you've seen this, you know it's different. But that's what it reminded me of, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, that's really cool. Because usually when you have a serial killer, like in Seven or Zodiac, they're hiding, they're alone, they don't really try to leave you hints as to who they are, you know? They just want you to see what they've done.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah.
And then if they do want to have a game of like, here's little breadcrumbs that might lead you to me, then there's that, but it's never like on level of this.
No. I mean, this dude is streaming his face.
Cause and he kind of is on par with like a James Bond villain near the end of the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like having this like big hideout, and like I thought the final act was pretty good.
Yes.
A lot of people say they don't like it. I thought it was good.
I liked it.
And I like that because I had a question the whole movie. I had this in my notes. I was like, because you know early on when they're finding bodies, they're like, this person's been missing for X amount of time, and they're still fresh.
Yes.
But we can tell they've been dead for a while.
Right.
So I love near the end, you see all those bodies floating under the ice, and it's like, oh, connected a dot right there from a question I had earlier in the film. And I was like, that's so cool. Because I think a good ending of a movie should deliver on promises that are given to you earlier.
Right.
You can't just present something like that and then not explain how it happened.
Right.
So that was cool. Yeah. I liked that. And that shot was so creepy too. When you just kind of see the water and all the bodies just stuck under the ice. Yeah. And, you know, how fitting that he ended up going out that way as well. But, so I don't know. The serial killer in this is just awesome. What did you think about the mask?
So that mask, it was different.
Yes.
Because it was like, you know, it wasn't a mask it was like a screen that he
Basically,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
it was electronic, and it was cool though. It was creepy. I was like, oh wow, like
When you first see him looking in that window when the house is on fire,
that was a phenomenal
I was
decision.
I was like, dude, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you come into
very-
this house, you see what you see,
Yep.
and then on top of that, it's on fire, and then you look
Yes.
out a window and you just see this really ugly looking face being displayed on a screen,
Yeah.
on a body.
right.
There's just so much to process and not a lot of time.
No, they had no time to process anything.
And that shot where he's the serial killer, he's standing there looking at the house on fire. I think that is my favorite shot in the movie. I
Yeah.
thought that was badass. I was like, dude, that is cool. Like he, because he wasn't running. He,
Right.
you know, like it shows like he feels he's in control.
Yeah, because I mean, even when they have masks, it's usually like something weird, but like the teeth are normally it's a
Symmetrical,
perfect set
yeah,
of teeth.
yeah.
I mean, his teeth were all messed up. It looked like there was nothing around the eye socket except for the eyeball itself because it was all dark. The face was pale, pasty white, like a ghost. And then you have the hood up on top. It was just the perfect combination for eerie.
Yeah,
And I think they did a great job with that. I mean, like I said, it looked like it was projected on like a
yes,
white screen, and you got a projector. Like that's the kind of vibe I got from it. And then it starts switching to, I think it was the victims that, like pictures of the
Yeah,
victims that was switching through it. And I was
it's like a big
that's weird.
psychological game.
Yes.
And because I'm at like, it's funny, I skipped right over this. The bodies hanging.
yeah,
That was the first thing I was like, oh, this movie's dark.
Yeah.
Like this is wow, okay.
like he lures the victims' families to there.
And he makes you think they're alive
Yeah,
because he records them before he kills them. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna skip ahead to later in the movie when he's capturing. Forgive me, I forget her name. Anya, DCI's daughter, DCI Rain's daughter,
oh,
that he takes.
I forget her name.
I think it's Anya. But either way, when he's stalking her when she comes home, that scene was beautifully done.
Yes.
Or that whole sequence, I should say, because you have a cyber stalker serial killer,
Yep.
right? How brilliant is it that he's able to manipulate you in your own home just using the devices around you? He's not even in there with you. He's just talking to you,
Through the
making
Alexa.
things happen with electronics.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that's fucking brilliant.
It is. He
I-
was a very sophisticated serial killer.
Yeah, like I think I don't have my notes on me right now, but I think I marked down something about that whole thing. I was like, this is innovative.
Yeah.
In terms of, because usually with a serial killer, we'll see a scene, like in the Batman with the Riddler.
Yeah.
We only see it the one time in the mayor's house.
Yeah.
But they enter the home and they stalk their victim. So he's stalking through this technology that he's established his whole identity with,
Versus
essentially.
most serial killers getting off to physically stalking them.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That whole sequence of events with her like took this movie up for me a notch. I was like, that's really cool. So
Yeah, it was a very, it kind of reminded me of a very 21st century serial killer.
yeah,
Using the electronics to where, when law enforcement, you see law enforcement in movies, using 21st century electronics to catch them. You're seeing it on the opposite end where the serial killer is using it to his advantage to stalk them, to, psychologically torture them. And, it's like he's getting off on it from a distance.
yeah,
He's not doing it himself,
yeah,
per se. I mean, he is, but not like, right there in person. He's doing it from a distance. And I think that's what made him a very sophisticated, challenging serial killer for the, law enforcement in the movie. Was because
Yeah.
he was never physically there. He lured them to a certain place to take them.
yeah. Well, it also made me start thinking, because there's a few people that think that this movie ends with an open ending. I don't personally agree with that. I think they put a bow on this story just fine. Other than Luther is now a contract. I don't even know what he is now, a contractor, or like, so he's not the detective that he's always been known as, or an inmate anymore, which I got a little gripe with that, and I'll touch on that in a second. But so yeah, he got whatever he is now, and whatever he's gonna work. I don't know, whatever that is. I feel like he's essentially James Bond at the end, which is funny because everyone. I don't know if you know this. There's a lot of people that have been advocating for him to play James Bond.
I've seen that. I saw a report where
the
he
past
stated
2
he
years.
would never do
it. He said he would never do it. And that's what's funny about these people online. They never consider what the actual person themselves wants to. It's like Zack Snyder or Ben Affleck for Batman.
Yeah.
Hate to get way off track right now, but like the man literally just said in an interview that after his experience with Justice League, he was done with the character. He didn't want to do it again, and then when they presented the script for the Flash movie, he was like, okay, this is a redemption arc for me, because he never felt like he got the character done right in his own self. Like, he never felt like he nailed it, and he said he nailed it in this, and it's a good send-off. So he's done. But then you got people hashtag make the bat flag. It's like, how can you do that if the man himself doesn't want to do it? Stupid. So anyways, little tangent over. But, yeah, so I don't know. I feel like the film ends just fine for me. Yeah. The serial killer's dead. Yep. There's no question about that. Right? Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure we agree on that, because maybe people out there think, oh, he might have got out the ice afterwards. But
if they say he's alive and he comes back, then he's immortal at that point. Like, the dude was stuck under the ice. It was ice. Like, hypothermia kicked in. This dude's dying. This dude is dead at that point. Like, if he doesn't die, then he's pretty much fucking Scream, or for the viewers, I know it is usually a different person behind the mask, but it's still the same concept.
Yeah, it's the same.
So,
just so they don't get mad, it's like Michael Myers. Michael Myers is always the same freaking person.
He burned and got locked in the house that caught on fire and burned to ashes. The dude died, but magically survived. Doesn't make sense. Anyway. But it's going to be on that level of things.
Yeah.
And it's going to ruin the character. It's going to ruin the story. I mean, like in Star Wars. Thing. Episode 9, when they brought back Palpatine, George Lucas stated he died. So they pretty much retconned everything. Ruined, Anakin Skywalker coming back to the light side, ruining everything that happened in those movies, and especially in episode 6, just so they're like, oh, bring back the big bad again. Like, no, new characters.
Yeah. When you try to create a new story and you basically retcon what you did before that for the same world, but just for this story, you're actually hurting your franchise.
You are.
And that's a big mistake that happens, unfortunately.
A lot.
And it happened with the fucking trilogy, the last trilogy we got for Star Wars. And
that's a whole other conversation, but it's a good example. And that's all this is.
My feeling of this film is that it was, because it's been referred to as the comeback to tie up the series. Yeah. So he came back to reprise his role. They did this movie. I feel like it's kind of similar to the Breaking Bad film that Netflix did.
Yes.
Yep. It was like, here's a nice little bow on that. Send it off.
Now, granted, I could see them making a sequel to this, but I feel like it would almost be a completely different movie and different feel. But I'm not saying they need to do it. I think it was a perfect send-off.
Because if you continue, then you got Idris Elba, who's no longer a cop. He's not an inmate. He's just like a rogue mercenary.
Pretty much.
And then maybe Andy Serkis' character. What's his character's name?
David Roby.
Roby. That's it. Roby. That's the. This whole time I've been saying serial killer. I'm like like in my head, Roby. maybe he inspired
Yeah.
another, maybe that would be the story. But to me, that would just totally deflate what they did with this
Because
film.
at the end of the day, like, you could keep making movies about it, but it's like, the ending that they gave us, he's going to be working for whoever this group is, whether it's government, whether it's contract, whatever it is, he's going to be working for them. He's not going back to prison because, in the sense, this is, it's like in Catch Me If You Can. I forget who the movie was based off of, what his name was. But instead of going to prison, the FBI hired him for his prison term, and he worked with them to help them catch people like him. Yeah. And then, granted, he stayed working for the FBI long after the time that he had to work with them.
Yeah, he had a
and
job.
Made a career out of it.
Yeah.
But, so that's kind of the sense that, they're having with this. So you can just be like, in your head, you're like, all right, he's working with them. The big bad was killed or died, trying to escape from John's character. Or, Idris's character, John.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect ending to the perfect story.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it should just be done.
I agree.
Now I'm going to jump into the prison thing. I don't understand why he doesn't go back to prison at the end of the movie. And there's a lot, because I've looked this up, I've listened to different theories and stuff, but my sole issue is when you're giving someone a story through a movie, again, you gotta reward promises that are given to you earlier in the film. And one of those promises was the arrangement for his working on this, the people that helped me out of prison.
He agreed to go back.
So the whole like riding off into the sunset at the end was just kind of like, okay, like, because the other issue I had this whole film is this dude's out and about in the public eye.
Yeah.
Acting like a detective.
Right.
He even refers to himself as one.
Yeah.
So it's like, his face has been all over the news.
Yeah, that kind of bothered me.
Like, Roby, he sees him on the news earlier in the film, and that's how they kind of give to us, the people who hadn't seen the TV series, here's why he's in prison. He did these bad things. But so it's very common knowledge to anyone who watches the news. Right. This guy's bad. He's supposed to be in prison. And I'm sure when he got out of prison, there was coverage on that as well. Probably like be on the lookout, stuff like that.
Which, even for people who don't watch the news nowadays, which most people I feel like, don't really do that, at least our generation, it's all over social media.
Yeah,
so you're telling me
for a movie that's very emphasized on technology, the internet, all that, there's no way people weren't aware.
Exactly.
And that was a big issue.
Yep.
Because they don't have, like, even if they just had a few scenes where there was like passerbyers like, oh, that's John Luther, call 911, honey, like something like that. Right. Cool. And then he's got to run and hide. Yeah. But no, like
nobody even noticed him.
So that was one thing I will agree they dropped the ball with stakes, because when you break out of prison, even if there's some group helping you, to the common folk, you're a criminal.
Yes.
They're not going to be aware that somebody's helped you out or no. So I have a big problem with that. It is a kind of flaw in the story for me.
That's what Prison Break did so good with that.
Oh,
I mean, granted,
so
it was all,
good.
5
so
seasons to really play off of it.
You just felt like they were never safe anywhere.
They were never. Like, they were constantly hiding their face.
Mm-hmm.
They went to, not to get too far off subject, they went to, that lady's house looking for the money in the second season.
Yeah.
And she didn't really notice them, realize, like, who they were.
That was believable.
Right. But they were still hiding their face, and even, like, as the contractors.
He does nothing.
He does nothing.
He's out there like, I'm fucking John Luther, motherfucker. Like, it's like
he's in a jacket, like, in a coat, without a hood or anything.
Like, I'll just assume they shorten your sentence. No big deal. Like,
right.
I don't know.
It didn't make sense.
Yeah, so it bothered me. But it's weird. For some reason, I was okay with it. And that might be part of why they didn't put too much emphasis on the Prison Break and the whole prison thing in general. Like, because there's a lot of weird things that happen. Like, he gets a cell phone in prison.
Yeah, which I can kind of see that. Like, if he has, a CEO in there, who, knows him and he's very cool with because of his law enforcement background, then maybe they might try to smuggle a phone in for him. So I could kind of see it like that. It's stretched.
Dude, as soon as that phone call went in that he had a cell phone, they were raiding that cell.
Yeah.
That was a load. I actually kind of laughed at that part, just like how like intense they were about him having a cell phone. So again, that's kind of like, we're gonna handle this situation like that, but when this guy's walking around in public, it's la-di-da.
Right.
But I think again, because of how they nerfed the whole prison thing, it kind of set me up to overlook everything else that was flawed with that whole situation. Yeah. So kudos to them, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, with them hyper fixating on the cat and mouse game, you don't really, at least with me when I watched it, I wasn't necessarily like focused on that. I was focused more on the game.
It's almost like the prison thing could have just been something we heard about. Like, we didn't even need to see it.
Exactly. They could have skipped.
Like, I broke out of prison last week. I'm looking for the serial killer. Like, okay, cool. I don't know.
I feel like it wasn't really necessary for the plot of the movie. Like, with the way it started, and then you could see like the headlines, and then you could see like, some movies will go like, 5 years later, whatever the time limit was. They could have easily just done that real quick and went right into the cat and mouse game. Yeah. And it would have been the exact same movie for me. The prison break thing wasn't necessary with the way they set it up, in my opinion, it wasn't necessary. With the lady coming to the prison, I forget her name, but the lady that he promised he'd find her son.
Oh, yeah.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
Her coming there and her pretty much saying, fuck you. Like, it wasn't necessary in my eyes.
Something I just remembered that it was in my notes. I had a problem with this. You might have caught why it made sense. It didn't make sense to me. When there was the first chase scene with Luther after Roby, and then he calls what's-his-face, like, he's out? How did he not know he was out of prison? Because it was a prison break.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
It was in the media.
Because it's obvious.
Your whole thing is you're online and you've got a network. And I was like, did I miss something?
Yeah, I was... I didn't really see anything with that.
My issues with this film are with the story.
Yeah.
There were some hiccups.
So
I don't know.
Now, maybe, pulling out of the air, maybe he was so worried about everything going on with his organization and trying to get the pieces moving that maybe he was too busy to see it. But that is pulling out of my ass to get that, answer. There was nothing in it that really explained it, and I feel like they dropped the ball on in that regard. It's like,
I don't know. So that kind of bothered me too.
Yeah.
It caught me off guard because, dude, that fight sequence though, where you realize that Roby can fight.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
badass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is like usually the serial killer isn't capable of combat to that degree.
Yeah.
Which is why they keep a distance.
Yes.
And he keeps a distance, but man, when he's face to face with Luther, he can stand his own.
Oh yeah.
And
it makes me wonder, maybe the TV show explains this, but what was this dude's background? Because he's highly intelligent and he's very skilled with hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that myself. I just remembered another issue I had. I hate how I have issues with things so much, but again, I cover this in Texas Chainsaw. I overanalyze everything now. That's what this has done to me. It's created a monster. When they're fighting in the subway, why did only one... Like, any other instance we see SWAT members, they're in a group, which is how it is in real life.
Yep.
Why did only one SWAT member come down in the subway by himself like that?
I don't know. Tactically, it was a very poor decision on his part, but I feel like, he just left the group and was like, I hear people, I'm running.
Which I was thinking that. And I was like, okay, he's going to get his ass reamed. But then another solo SWAT member comes down to help him, and he realized, like, oh, Luther's helping him. Luther's not bad.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, How many more like dumbass SWAT members do we have?
And that's the thing. Like,
I've watched plenty of shows and movies about SWAT teams. We have friends that are cops. We know that is damn well not how it works. And I don't care what country you're in. That is not tactical at all.
No.
Because when you're calling in SWAT with bulletproof gear and helmets and shields, it's something bad, and it means you got to stick in a group.
Yeah.
And if you do separate, you're at least in teams of 2.
Right.
At least. So if they were a team of 2, why were they separated by so many minutes? You know, like that, and that's
the thing. Like,
it just really bothered me.
He came running up. He hit him with his gun. And then, you know, in the middle of the fight, his partner comes. I could kind of understand, like, he just took off. His partner didn't realize it for a second. It was like, oh, shit, he went this way kind of deal. But like you said, minutes. Like, this dude's bleeding out. He's trying to fucking, medically, stop the bleeding.
Well, because Roby had time to run off before that guy came. So it was like, okay. I'll tell you in my head what I thought the reason for this was. Because it was again just kind of lazy writing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make Roby, that's his name, right?
Yes.
Roby, okay. They want to make Roby look like he could be good competition for Luther.
Yes.
Like he's a good opposition. But they didn't want to make Luther look like a bitch, essentially.
Yeah.
Because in this scenario, if you're going to have Roby get away, he has to somehow one-up Luther.
Yes.
And so they get down the subway. Like, I just picture they were riding, like, oh, yeah, they get down the subway, and, like, he's fighting them, and, like, it's a good combat. And then, like, wait, how do we, like, make Luther look strong without him beating him? Oh, crap. We had a SWAT team we just showed in a couple scenes ago, so one of them comes down, and it's like, okay. That's what it felt like to me, because then that creates a situation where Luther, being a good guy, would obviously stay and help the guy who just got shot.
Right.
And let the bad guy get away. So it just felt like a cheap way. It felt very shoehorned, and I was like, okay. But so that bothered me, and it sucked because that fight between them was so cool.
Fucking phenomenal.
It was so cool.
And they didn't even really need to bring the SWAT in with that because he got stabbed. So, it could make sense, with that. But then again, it's like, well, why didn't he kill them? And then it goes back to the cat and mouse where he's like, he enjoys playing with him. And that's why he didn't kill him.
Wait, the SWAT member got stabbed?
Luther got stabbed.
Luther. Okay. Gotcha.
Well, the SWAT member got cut in his...
that's right, he did get cut.
In the artery going up his thigh.
I don't know why I thought he got shot. Yeah.
But then again, I felt like the way I saw it, Roby was, his fighting style and his knowledge with fighting and hand-to-hand combat, I felt like he was a better fighter than Luther was. Maybe that's just me, but, with the way he worked with the knife and his self-defense, don't get me wrong, Luther was definitely a badass. He was definitely able to handle his own.
Yeah.
But I still felt like Roby was a better fighter.
He felt like a problem.
Yes.
Like, in that combat, I was like, oh, crap, man.
Like, I didn't think Luther was getting out of that alive. I mean, I knew he was going to, obviously, because the movie wasn't over with. But I felt like he could easily die at any given second.
And again, I hate to go back to a negative, but, I said earlier, I felt like they didn't give us enough of a arc with Luther, personally. It would have been cool to see him actually get one-upped in that battle.
Yeah.
Like, remove the SWAT situation.
Right.
He gets his ass handed to him. Like, it's a close fight, but he loses in this situation. And then he can redeem himself later. Arc.
Yes.
But no, he's just like a badass, and there has to be something else that happens that keeps him from doing his job. And it's like, okay. So, yeah, it kind of bothered me. But again, I do like this movie a lot. So, it's not like that ruined anything for me.
No, I mean,
all just minor story issues.
Exactly.
Just,
It's little things that added up to the 3.75 stones for me. It wasn't anything that, like you said, ruined the movie. Because at the end of the day, it was a very good movie. I was very entertained. Just watching it, like, as a viewer with, the film background not being a part of my thought process.
Yeah.
Entertaining movie. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the action scenes. I enjoyed, the choreography.
Choreography.
Thank you. with the fight scenes, like I thought they did a good job.
Yeah.
Then bringing in my film background and my knowledge with behind the scenes and everything else, bringing that into thought, that's when the negativity starts coming, and that's when my nitpick starts happening.
Yeah, and for a Netflix film, I think this is top tier.
Yes.
Because I'm not a fan of most Netflix produced films.
I think a lot of them are kind of boring. I mean, they're entertaining to the point where I'll watch them and I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, it was a decent movie. I'm not, dead set on making it a big deal, though.
A lot of them just feel like they were thrown together so quickly
Yeah.
in an attempt to get a quick rise on a cheap buck.
Yep.
And I think that's a big part of why Netflix is struggling right now. Because, I mean, all streaming services are struggling to some degree.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Because now there's too many of them. Back in the day, before it was a hot commodity,
It was Netflix.
there was no, opposition. But now there's just so many.
Peak.
Like, you think of it, it's got a
HBO.
streaming
Yeah.
service. I'm waiting for YouTube to somehow get TV shows exclusively.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm surprised they haven't.
I am too.
Like,
I'm really surprised.
I mean, YouTube's been around since the early 2000s, I think.
Mhm. It just kind of seems like the
they were
next
the
step.
start. Right.
Because they have YouTube TV.
They got YouTube TV. They have,
They have movies that you can rent.
movies,
Like, imagine if you see, I don't
a
know.
YouTube special.
Yeah, take any new movie that's coming out. What's the new one with Adam Driver? That's what I was trying to think of. Is it called 34? It's a number. Sci-fi movie of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I know people watching right now. It's this, you dumbass.
Right.
It's a number, all right? I want to say 34. I'm going to put my money on it. Drum roll.
65. You're so close.
All right, 65. That's so off. I had no money to put down, so that worked out for me. But anyways, take that movie. Say when it comes to streaming, you see exclusively on YouTube, you'd be like, I can just go to youtube.com and watch this movie.
Right. But that's
That'd
the
be
thing,
something.
is like,
It would have ads, of course. And then you'd have to have a paid subscription to watch it without it. But still, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of rights to movies and stuff. So, but I feel like they have the money to put the bid in.
they have to have the money. Well, I mean, YouTube is such a huge part of everyday life. Like with us, our podcast, other people put their stuff on there. But
Think
then
about
you have
all
like
the ads. You
ads.
can't watch anything without ads.
No, most ads are either 15
So-
seconds long,
Those are companies sending the money.
or you have 2 ads
Yeah.
per video you watch. I mean, I'm just trying. I'll pull up like
Oh.
music on YouTube to listen in the car, and I have to worry about the stupid ads. And yes, it's annoying as shit,
Yeah.
but that's money.
That's money they're getting. That's what I'm
So-
saying. I mean, because we know how that works now.
Yeah.
You get a click, money comes in, because there's ads involved. So I don't know. I'm sure it's coming. That's all I gotta say. I'm sure it's coming. And then eventually Disney's gonna buy everything, and then we're all gonna bow to the mouse. So.
Back to the mouse.
But all right. So finishing up on Luther, I'm just gonna say that I really enjoyed this movie. And I will add to my very long and extensive list watching the TV show. So I guess in 2034, I'll let you guys know if watching it changed my opinion on this, because it's going to be a while.
What did you think of that at the end of the movie when Luther and Rain get captured and they're in the room where it's being live streamed to everybody?
Okay.
And she has to stab him, and then he's supposed to shatter her kneecap with a hammer in order to save her kid. Like, that scene there for me was intense.
It was.
Because as a viewer, I'm thinking, like, how are they getting out of this?
Yeah.
Because, like, honestly, I don't see them getting out of this.
They did a great job of setting up a situation in which you don't see any other way but what's being presented to you. And I actually was sitting there thinking, when he's yelling at her, just do it.
Yeah.
I was like, she's going to have to.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was That was a really good scene.
It was. I thought that was perfectly executed.
I love scenes like that. Dude,
Yes.
Walking Dead is full of scenes like that.
Yeah.
Especially once you get into later seasons. Because you can tell with the writing of Walking Dead, they're like, we need to come up with something new. And they'll put characters in situations and you're just like, how do they get out of this? And then it's like, oh, okay, didn't think of that. You know, so...
Shit, me only... No, I am on the second season, I think.
Is that The Farm?
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good season.
But it was like...
John Bernthal is my favorite character in that season. Shane.
Yeah.
I love Shane in The Walking Dead. I'm a big advocate for Shane over Rick. Hate on me. John Bernthal, man, he's a load in that season. We call people that are cool, awesome, worship-worthy, iconic loads. Okay? That's the thing. We all say it. Even Jordan Grant. Kate probably says it now, too.
But I mean, they already started showing that, like, with when he's going to Atlanta on the horse, and he is surrounded by the zombies, and gets stuck in the tank.
God, such a cool scene.
My first thought was, this is it for him. Like, he's done. I don't understand how they're going to get him out of this. And then he gets out of it, and then they're stuck in the building. It's like, okay, how are they getting out of it?
That's what I'm saying.
And
that's what I'm saying. They are so good at setting up stuff like that. They know how to use the world they've built to set up these scenes perfectly. I mean, it's rare. There's a few times where I'm like, oh, okay, they could just do that. It's very rare that I can do that. So, yeah, the writers on The Walking Dead are awesome.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Is there anything else you want to say about this?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, that's it for the Luther portion of this. Now we're just going to ramble about some other shit. And then we're going to update you guys with some things that are coming in the near future that I'm very excited about. I think, because I've been thinking about, like, how can we cover TV shows like The Office? We've been talking about doing an episode on The Office. I think it'd be cool, because we're not going to sit down and review every episode. We're not going to sit down and review every season. It just ain't going to happen. There's too much TV. Think about doing that with Game of Thrones. We'd be like
doing this for
you guys would be in your 80s. I'd be 200. Yeah. Like, no, but I mean, it's just so. My idea is we pick a show like The Office, and eventually we can do Walking Dead, me and you, which I'm excited about because I've always wanted to talk about that with somebody other than my dad. No offense, Dad. I love talking about Walking Dead with you, but I don't know. It's just it'd be cool to have other people to talk about it with. But we just like pick moments that we think really drive the story forward in seasons.
Yes.
Like The Office, I can name a bunch right off the bat, you know, and so I think that would be easier for us to do, and then we can have a general discussion off those key points that so like maybe I pick 2 or 3 key points, you pick 2 or 3, Grant, Jordan, and then that's how we tackle TV shows. And I think that'd be cool for the audience too, because I think, again, when you're going to tune into a podcast about a TV show, unless it says, like, review of episode blah, 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 review of season, you're expecting they're talking about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll still give spoiler warnings, but, I mean, I think people would enjoy knowing that it's not going to be this elongated thing where we cover everything.
Right.
'Cause, enough people have done that.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring a little something new to the mix, but I still want to talk about it.
Yes.
Because, again, The Office, one of my top favorite TV series of all time.
Yeah.
Such a big part of my life. So, as it is for a lot of people. And then, I don't know, there's so many we could talk about. We got to watch Longmire. Grant's going to put another boot up our ass if we don't get on that soon. And Narcos. Mm-hmm. He's already knocked that dang series out. I'm just like,
I've got like
I can't.
I'm trying to knock
There's
out
too
right
many.
Now. There is.
Oh,
God, we should have started this back in '98.
Yeah, can we
like me fresh in the orphanage podcasting?
Well, right now, I want to give you a couple minutes or whatever you want to do, even if it's just a quick sentence. Since you didn't get to speak on your behalf about the Snyder Cult page.
Yeah.
So for anyone who watched our video, he was originally going to be a part of that, as he had a lot of things, and I covered most of it. My video ended up being an hour, and I only wanted it to be like 30 minutes, so... But There's so much to unpack on that, and we are going to be seen on some YouTube shows here in the near future, which I'm sure we'll get asked more questions about it. But is there anything you just want to say about it, with your experience with it, why we did it, yada yada?
Yeah, so like I said, I unfortunately wasn't able to make that podcast. That was one that I was very excited to be a part of. But at the end of the day, you know, our day jobs have to be a priority. You know, at this point in time.
Damn day jobs.
So I got stuck working and couldn't make it. But so like my experience with the whole Snyder Cult thing was, you came up to me and you're like, you know, we, like you said, like I'm fresh in the sense of social medias. I'm still trying to learn how to operate social media things because I never cared about that. Like,
I just remember explaining Twitter to you.
Yeah, I
forgot
couldn't
I had to do that.
Yeah. So
you were like, how do I Twitter?
Because so my history with Twitter, I've made accounts in the past and I looked at it, I was confused. I said this sucks. So I deleted it. Like, it didn't make sense. I didn't know what to do. I did that about 2-3 times. Finally, I went to you. I'm like, how do I do this? Like, it makes zero sense to me. And
well, you could be like Jordan. Jordan tweets, the groundhog has risen. Groundhog Day. That's it. If you go to Jordan, well, Jordan doesn't even use Twitter anymore, but if you find his old Twitter account, that's what he used to tweet every year. That's it. So.
But I mean, I'm, you know, I understand Twitter and understand like how to operate it somewhat. So enough to get by. So, you know, you came to me and was like, we were talking about, you know, the Snyderverse. We were talking about, you know, DC, Marvel, and all this stuff. And you started explaining to me like what's really going on with things I didn't get to see at that point in time. So I was like, wow, like this is toxic. Like, you know, there's something that these people need to realize that they're doing is not, you know, it's too far. Like, don't get me wrong, a huge Snyder fan, loved Zack Snyder's Justice League. I love, you know, most of his movies. 300, like, with
300,
DC.
so Jordan and I were just talking about 300.
Aside. So
he's getting into Zack Snyder now.
He is.
Yeah, we're getting him.
It's very
we're getting him in
exciting.
there.
But then you came to me with this idea, and honestly, I was a little weary about it. I was a little worried because, like, with us being the face of, you know, our business, Ray Miller Production, I was worried about the backlash for that. Just starting off.
Just if, like, something bad did come of it and
Right.
people were aware that we were behind it.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I was a big proponent of never showing my face. Funny how things work out.
It is. And, I mean, luckily it worked out, you know, in a good sense for us. But you came to me, I was a little weary, but I was like, all right, let's try it. Like, we can only try it, see how it goes. I'm thinking, you know, nothing's going to come of this. Like, most of the things that we did at that point in time where random things would take off and it was like, why kind of deal. But I'm like, okay, maybe this might, but with one video, you know, we might get, you know, 100 people to see this and that's it. Like, but like you said, like, it took off and I was like, oh, like, these people are already proving our point. And, you know, we, you know, like you said, we were trying to decide, like, where to go from it. And, you know, it took a little bit for me to be like, okay, this is worth it. Like, the amount of views we're getting on this and seeing people, you know, talk on their podcasts and stuff, like, who are these people? And people are like, oh, it's this person. And they were wrong, 100% wrong. Every time except for Detective Melons.
Oh, yeah.
I say that jokingly.
Saggy, yeah.
Well,
see, that was a motivation for me, and I'm sure it was you as well, is like, we were bringing out this ugly side of the fandom in full force. But then we had people like her that understood what we were doing and let us know, like, this is awesome. Yeah. Keep it going. And there were other people, but she's always been a big supporter of ours, so we like giving her shout-outs.
Yep. And don't get me wrong. Me being a part of the Star Wars...
Melons. That's funny.
But me being a part of the Star Wars fandom, I understand the toxicity behind fandoms very well. And you know, a lot of the times I kind of see where they can be coming from, but at the same time, I'm like, this isn't the way to go about it. And that's one thing that I absolutely loved about this and was very excited for. And then us just making these videos, I mean, yeah, it was fun. Like, I had a lot of fun dressing up and, you know, seeing the reactions from people. But it didn't really hit me until you made me realize, like, how big this was getting, and then I started digging into it more afterwards.
Yeah.
But I was like, at that point in time, I wasn't really on Twitter much. I had it, but I wasn't really doing anything with it. And I was like, wow, like there's something here. Like there's
It's kind of hard to like accept. You
Yeah.
know, it's like things we're dealing with right now that we're
Right.
like, is this really about to happen? Like that's how it was then.
Yes. And I mean, it was just something that I really enjoyed doing, especially like towards the end.
It was a lot of fun.
And
It was a lot of fun.
you know, just our thought process with it was, you know, almost insane. Like, in the sense of like
Yeah.
what we're doing to like prove our point. I don't know. I had a very fun time with that. I think it was a very fun experiment we did,
It was. That's exactly what it was. It was just a fun experiment, and it worked.
and it worked.
It actually freaking worked.
Like,
so,
Um,
you guys, I don't know if anyone can relate to that. It's so satisfying when you sit around and think of an idea that no one's done before, because no one has
Nobody's
ever
done
done
this.
what we did before.
No.
We can take pride in that. I can say that very confidently.
Yep.
I've never seen anyone take something that's going on online that's being referenced to as one thing or another and then make an entire, I don't even know, a world out of it. We created like a whole little world out of this idea of a cult for Zack Snyder.
and that's the thing is like one thing I love about our I'm trying to think of the right word, but our sarcastic characters that we make.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we have a lot of fictional characters we've come up with outside of this as well.
Yes.
You know, so that's
they can become really badass, like actual serious characters if we decide to do that. And I think that's what's great about this is we can make, you know, some weirder, you know, short film about these characters if we really wanted to. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's necessary. I think these characters were exactly what they needed to be.
Yeah. I will say this. I mean, we're giving away the Dr. Shield mask.
Yeah.
And that's that last video I did for Mr. Sean O'Connell. That was just purely for him.
Yeah.
I think he's a great guy. I've started reading his books. He's a great author. I listen to his podcast. And with all the research and everything that we had done, he definitely deserved to be our fourth pillar of the Snyderverse. And we know we get a lot of flack for people we never mention and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? You know who they are because of how much they get mentioned. You probably don't know them directly. Yes, they were big contributors to the Snyderverse. The person who first tweeted the hashtag, the people that got the rallying together and made the events happen at the conventions. We know all about that. But the point of this was the people that we felt like weren't getting enough praise.
Yeah.
And it's gotten conversation going.
Yeah.
So it's worked again. But that for me was kind of like the send off. I think for you too.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect send off for
Yeah,
you know,
now-
what we did.
But what I'm getting into, because we've had people that want us to do more, like Saggy. I'm not opposed to me. I mean, I'm sure if the right, because especially with the toxic Snyder fans,
Yeah.
the right scenario, you know, proposes that we do something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say we won't set up some shit over there and film,
Right.
another cult thing, but the Dr. Shield character is done with, for sure. So, and that whole idea, I don't think we'll do Lord Tyrant or any of the other characters again.
No.
But yeah, I mean, we could always play around with that idea some more because we're still making stuff for this podcast like that, you know,
Right.
skits and whatever. So it's a possibility, but. God, out of all the characters we created, did you ever think Dr. Shield would be the one to take off?
No. No.
Good.
When I first started, that was, like I said, that was something where I thought we might get 100 views if we're lucky, kind of deal.
It's so funny. Like
And
I talked about the video I know you saw it, but like the comments and the messages we were getting, and how my favorite was the one where it shows Robert Pattinson's Batman holding the cell phone and he's talking to me like I'm the villain in his world. For me, there was a couple more that were almost my favorite like that. One of them, someone put me on, I think it was the cliff in The Lion King, and I'm holding up Simba, but he has Zack Snyder's head, and it says he's the one that will raise us and lead us to the promised land. And I was like, what? It's like, what is that? But there's just so many ridiculous, like, remember they put Snyder's face on Jesus?
Yeah.
And they said, like, he has bestowed his love upon you and his blessings. Continue, my son. It's like,
and that's
like I'm a prophet for sex.
And that's the thing, is like, half of our creativity came from those memes and what they were.
That's why I said, like, our initial idea was just that first video. Like, what would the initiation process for the cult look like?
Yeah. If,
Saturday Night Live did a skit on it. Right. That was our whole. And then after that, it was like, oh, someone said something about this and this and this. And, like, my favorite is touching grass.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget, we showed one of our coworkers what I did, and they laughed their ass off. They're like, no one's ever done that. Everyone kept saying, go touch grass. Go. So we made a video of Dr. Chilchill landing in a field and actually touching grass and getting, like, this magical power from it. And then I was like, I've touched grass. Now what? And people were like, this motherfucker actually went outside and touched grass.
It was very sarcastic.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I mean. The comments we were getting actually drove what we were doing. Yeah. So, I don't know. It was fun.
And that's what's funny. Like, with that one in particular, I didn't even know what go touch grass meant.
Oh, I understood it meant, like, go outside.
Like.
But I was taking it so literally to be a smart ass. Yeah. And it's funny how people got so riled up about the things we would do and say. And if someone can prove me wrong, please show it. I never once cussed at someone, said anything derogatory, anything in haste.
No.
Never got angry.
No.
We had nothing but respect for everybody, even the people that were hating on us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made them mad even more, is we weren't giving them what they wanted. Yeah, because they wanted us to show, like, see, they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, well, we thanked you for everything. So, I don't know.
It was a good time. It was definitely one to remember, and I think it was something that, if I were to do it all over again, it'd be the exact same way. I don't think there's anything about it that I'd want to change.
Even the things we had to do, like when, Twitter said we had to change our page and all that crap. That stuff we had to do. Mm-hmm. We had to go through that. It was inevitable. People wanted to cancel us. For people who doubt that we had 430 whatever people report us, there is a poll on the Dr. Chilchill, I think it is the Snyder Cult, at the Snyder Cult, whatever it is on Twitter. There is still a poll on our page. I'll pin it, actually. I'll pin it so it's at the very top. We had over 700 people vote that we delete our page in a survey asking if we should delete our page or post another video. Over 700 people.
Yeah, that's wild.
So the 400-something reports we got, that isn't anything compared to that. Okay? That's a lot of people that we were upsetting. And for doing what? What did we do? We made fun of a certain part of the fandom. And guess who probably reported us? That certain part of the fandom. It's like, come on. I don't know. But anyways, I gotta make a note of that. I want to pin that. That'll be a good reference point. I love giving people things that shut them up.
Yeah.
That's always fun to do too. But yeah, so we'll close the book on that one. Now, we're going to get into some... Let me see how much time we got here. We've been working on creating some new content for our podcast because we don't want to just be like any other podcast, which I think should be the goal for any podcaster. But, so we have some new segments that we're all going to be doing. I'll start with my... give me 1 second here. Yeah, I'll start with my my favorite one right now, just because we've already began to film it and everything. Jordan, who you guys have seen on the show, is a skeptic and a non-believer in anything fantastical. And we have dedicated a whole segment to that idea because we all have a love for ghost hunting.
Yeah.
Even Jordan, because he would love to witness something that changes his mind and shocks him. And we've done things like this for years, honestly. So we've decided to go out with body cams and GoPros and all that and document folklore and ghost stories around us. We're from Southern Ohio, so there's a lot. There's a lot. And I'm very excited to tackle a lot of them. A lot of them I've already experienced with my dad. My dad and I used to ghost hunt, and now we're going to do it as a group, and it's just going to be really fun. But we went to Bobby Mackey's, which is located in northern Kentucky. You can go online and look up the history of that place because it is pretty extensive. It goes back to the mid-1800s, and it's wild. It involves murders, cults, sacrificing demons. I mean, it's wild. And the stories that people have, including the owner's wife, to tell from that place are insane. So we went out there with cameras this past weekend, and we did some investigating of our own, and we didn't do the tour that people do. We wanted to investigate it unfiltered, untouched by the people that work there, and just see if we experience anything on our own. So we did that, and Jordan's going to tell you the story and moderate the footage that you see, and it's going to be really interesting. So that's going to be called Incredulous Rundown, and we'll be posting one of those a month. Now, on top of that, we thought it'd be cool for all of us to have segments. I already have one I've been doing called Ending Solved, but I want to kind of space out when I do that because there's not a lot of movies that have the ambiguous ending I'm looking for when it comes to the segment. So I want to keep it fresh. So every other month, I'm going to be doing Sunday AM Comics. I am a huge comic book fan. I have a lot of comic books. I read a lot of comic books. And I think it'd be really cool to highlight whatever comic book I have read recently. So I'm going to film it in a way that shows off the art inside the book. And I'm going to give you a general synopsis of the story. And I'm going to try to keep it spoiler-free in complete form. So I'm not going to show you the whole book. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. But it's going to be enough to maybe make you want to read the comic book or, the series that it is from if it's just a smaller novel. But either way, that's something I'm going to be doing. And those will be posted on Sundays in the morning. Because, Saturday morning cartoons, Sunday morning comics. It was always a thing with me, and I think it'd be fun to bring that to the show. And then Dimitri here has Deerstalkers, in which he's going to be talking about the psychology and history and investigations on non-fictional serial killers.
Fictional, too.
Oh, fictional, too.
Yeah, there's a couple fictional serial killers.
Okay.
One of the fictional ones is actually my favorite serial killer of all time.
Is it Dexter?
It is.
Wow.
But
okay, I didn't know
so
that. So that's cool.
I am going to throw in some fictional ones also.
So there you go. Serial killers in general. And basically that's it. I mean, that's it summed up, and it'll be very exciting because he's very well knowledged in this world, and he's passionate about it, fascinated by serial killers, almost to a concerning degree. But it'll make for a very entertaining segment. Is that what you're saying? I like psychology.
I like psychology. That's what got me started.
And dead bodies and stuff. Now, that gets us to Grant, which we've done some rebranding for his segment, but it's still going to be the same old thing. Sports. So if you're a person who's into sports and you want to see sports content from us, Grant, the coach, GM, whatever you want to call him, he's going to be tackling sports. We'll probably do his segment twice a month because he's going to be tackling sports that are currently in season. And I'll tell you what, this guy is an encyclopedia about sports. I've never met someone like him. He knows about every sport, even sports he's never played. Yep. He knows the history. He knows what's currently going on. He knows what's going to happen. It's wild.
When we went to the Reds game last year, in the middle of the game, he goes, he's getting traded by the end of the night. And he got traded by the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys. I'm telling you. So you'll want to tune in for that, and it's going to be called Eye on Sports. And like I said, that'll probably be twice a month. We're going to try to do it more regularly just to keep up with the sports that are going on.
There's a lot of stuff to keep up
There
on.
are. But just so you guys don't think this is replacing anything we're doing already, we're still doing the full panel discussions once a week. We're going to post those Tuesday or Wednesday of every week. It'll probably mostly be Wednesday. It just depends on how big the episode is and how much editing it takes. But I'm going to try to have them posted Tuesday night and then available Wednesday morning. But if they're smaller episodes, might just have them posted on Tuesday just to jumpstart the week. But yeah, so that's not changing. Now we are going to try to focus more on genre-centric discussions. So we've done some movies on their own, but again, we feel like there's so many podcasts that do that. We're trying to do something different. So we're getting ready to post a Modern Warfare and Film episode that I'm very excited about. I think it is our best episode yet. It's a long discussion. We cover 5 or 6 war movies, and we realized, you know what, we're gonna have to do a couple more of these because there's a lot of good war movies that tackle modern warfare. And for those of you that are gonna be like, World War II is modern warfare, we understand that technically, but we're also dedicating a whole episode to World War II because it is all of our favorite wars, and it just deserves its own episode in our opinion.
Yep.
And we'll eventually do Vietnam, World War I as well. So calm down. We're kind of just basing any kind of warfare that's, whether it's a fictional story or non-fictional, that takes place in the 90s or later. Is how we're going about it. So yeah, you'll see more genre-centric discussions, not so many on one movie. And as you heard earlier, we're going to do TV shows in which we just discuss the whole TV show that's completed. So we won't tackle any shows that are currently going on unless we feel like it's something that we're all currently watching and we can discuss. But that's kind of rare because we all have completely different schedules and we all have different priority lists on things we're watching currently. So, because basically how our friendship works, like our dynamic as a group, we all have different interests, and we are like, man, hey, you should check this out. And then we're like, okay, we add it to our list. So, like, one thing I've watched, him, Grant, and Jordan haven't watched. One thing Jordan's watched, us 3 haven't watched. And it's a never-ending cycle of chaos and misery, and we can just never watch something at the same time. Except for House of Dragon. Me, you, and Jordan did good with that.
Yeah,
we did good with that. And actually, we are going to do an episode on House of Dragon.
Yep.
So, that's one you can look forward to. But that, I guess that season's complete, so... yeah, so lots of fun stuff coming. We try to keep this one short and end up being a little over an hour. But whatever.
Never fails.
Yeah, it never fails. But yeah, just want to thank everybody who tunes in and listens to us. We've had a few people reach out saying they're really enjoying what we're doing. We've been slowly but gradually improving anywhere we think we need to. I mean, I'm sure you noticed in this one we've changed our setup. That's just to give us more room and have less noise in the background. So I've been more comfortable during this. I don't know about you. I like having room. Yeah. It's nice. So yeah, you'll notice that our setup might change here and there. We get new equipment, yada yada yada. We're just trying to make this a better experience for us and you guys. So yeah, that's it on this episode. Sorry for the tangent and all this other stuff besides Luther. That's why I emphasized when we were done with it. If you guys have anything you're wanting to see from us, feel free to throw some suggestions our way. I have an ending solved on Todd Phillips' Joker that I'm doing, which was suggested by a Twitter user, which is a movie I didn't want to try to solve the ending on, but I gave it my best shot. So yeah, if you guys suggest things, we're more likely than not going to do it. Because we like a challenge, and there's probably things we're not going to think of on our own. It's kind of overwhelming to try to do a podcast on everything, because we want to talk about books, music, anything that has a story to, like it's a lot to try to cover. It is. I mean, if there's anything you guys want to see, just let us know. We'll probably do it. Except porn. We're not going to review porn.
No.
Or discuss porn.
God's not.
That'd be weird. I don't know why I just thought of that, but I'm like, I can see someone like, talk about Ron Jeremy. Like, yeah, you can do that. But yeah, and then also if there's anything with these segments that we just announced that you guys are excited about or want to recommend to us, again, we're from Southern Ohio, so if there's any ghost stories you've heard about in Indiana, Kentucky, anywhere around us, let us know. It's probably something we've already got on our list, but still, we'd like to hear from you. So we always like the discussion. But that's I think that's it.
That's all for me.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.